welcome to Mr. Wilson Teaches Foam Relief Printing. So today we're going to be working on creating a light print that is made from a piece of foam in the shape of a totem pole. So this specific one I designed off the element of earth. So we'll talk a little bit about the design part of it throughout the video too. But a simple relief print that's very easy to do with limited supplies. Okay, so today we're going to be making a print based off of a sort of a totem pole idea where we're going to be stacking these faces on top of one another based off of everyone doing their own in class. So collectively it'll make one giant project, but we're just going to work on one specific piece. So the first thing we're going to do is start by taking a piece of paper and folding it up into fours. So the reason we're doing this is we're going to make some sketches or thumbnails. So I've already done this, but just to show you sort of what it's going to look like, we're going to be choosing elements to work from. So we're going to have one for water, fire, air, and earth. And then just think about those words and sort of what the line quality is like. So like on your water, you're going to have lots of like curves and waves and sort of shapes that are almost like that. Versus fire, where you're going to have some more jagged, harsh lines. Air, same thing, you want wispy sort of lines that sort of work their way out from one thing or another. And then earth, again, sort of boxy, very geometric. So just thinking about those shapes as you go, I'll show you my four here. And I also incorporate some different animal themes within them. This one's probably the most human aspect. You can see the seashell and then some of sort of the water lines. My fire one, I sort of pulled the idea, this is sort of from a bull. So I've got horns, the snout coming through. This is sort of warthog-esque. There's some fire in the eyes. My wind one was a little more on the comical side, and I tried to just work with sort of these wavy lines to sort of work their way out. And then my earth design, I started out with sort of like this owl design, then worked my way into like this fox and sort of fanged creature, but very boxy. So these are my four designs that I started with. And from here, you're going to choose which one you want to work from and then make any edits and sort of mess around. So the one that I'm drawn to out of all these is the earth one. And we're also trying to do a line of symmetry. So if you notice all of them, if you split them down the middle, you want them to be roughly about the same for each one. So after you finish that, so I've got my designs here, I'm just going to set that aside. I'm going to be taking a sheet of paper again, folding in half. So this is going to be the final size, which is half a sheet of computer paper. And then you're going to be sketching. So I'm just going to make a quick line across. And so I'm going to be sketching just half of this onto here. So I want this to be symmetrical. So I'm going to be tracing and transferring. So I'm just going to start by putting in roughly, half of everything. So you get the idea, filling in half the sheet, which I'll now show you over here. I've got half of this already sketched out how I want it. And I'm going to be taking a piece of tracing paper and I'm going to go through and trace out every aspect of this. All right, so I'm going to fast forward through this part so all you see is me just tracing it through. But it's important to note that as I'm doing this, I'm trying to keep my hand from smearing on it. So I'm right-handed, so I'm starting at the top left. So I'm going to fill in all that stuff. You can tape this down if you need to as well. It doesn't move around on you. And then I'm going to start just working my way down so I don't run into any of this stuff. Okay, so we'll fast forward through this. Okay, now that I have the whole thing traced out here, I'm going to be flipping it. So this is called trace and transfer. placing it onto the sheet. And then I'm just pressing on the back of the paper to transfer the lead onto the other side. This is technically just done with pressure, so I don't need to use a pencil. I could just scratch the back. I like to use a pencil because then I can see exactly where I've done it. But the same idea would work, so that line will show up even though I didn't use pencil on it. Or at least I hope it will. And I do this a lot anytime I'm trying to do something symmetrical. And technically it's not cheating because I'm taking my own design and sending it over. Okay, so you can see a light design came through. Now I'm going to sketch over that. Sometimes if it's off by a little too, I'll fix it up as I go. But I want to be able to see these better. And depending on how skilled of a drawer you are, it might be faster to actually sit here and just try and make it perfect by sketching it out. Oops. And then I'm going to erase out this central line I was using to figure out where the halfway point was. And then that will bring us to the next step. So if you folded the paper, we actually don't want this to be double layered. So if you need to, you're gonna cut this so that's just one paper wide. Okay, so we're gonna set all this other stuff aside. We've got our main design right here. And then we're gonna get out our scratch board. Okay, so this is the scratch foam board I'm using. This comes in a 9x12 that I just cut in half. So this is now a 9x6. It's a really easy to use foam. There are instructions in it, but I mean, the basic idea is you draw on it. You can either use a pencil, a pen, some sort of stick. It doesn't really matter. It makes impressions really easy. Then you ink, rub it, and you end up with a really cheap, easy print. So this is a good way to start learning printmaking. This is called a relief print. I'm making designs into it. So I'm just gonna set that aside. I'm gonna place this on top. And now this I would recommend taping. So you don't want this to move on you throughout. I'm just gonna put a little tape there. And then basically you're just gonna do the same exact thing, trace over it. So I'm gonna do this and I'll fast forward again. Okay, so the last step in this process is the inking. I'm gonna set that aside and get my own ink. So I have a roller. I've got some basic block printing ink. This is Speedball. There's other companies you can use, and then just some sort of surface to place this on. So it really doesn't take a lot of ink. I'm gonna start by just rolling this out here and getting a good layer on this. You get a nice clear surface, like a satin finish there. And then assuming that you did this correctly, just keep picking up the ink here. It should be only picking up on the areas that are on the surface. You can see around the eye there, I didn't push down hard enough with the pencil around all those parts. So normally I would wash this off, dry it, and then re-push down those areas. But for the purposes of this video, this is fine. And then depending on what color paper you want to do, you can start with a white piece of paper just to sort of do a test run. I'm going to go right onto my final paper. So I've chosen this like wood texture sort of paper. I'm going to place it on. And I do circles, making sure that it's not moving on me. So the ink can dry out pretty quick. So if that's the case, sometimes you have to wet the paper a little bit and then remove the water. You can add a retarder to the ink or put more on if you need to. But really the key is really pressing it on and making sure that you're making contact with the paper and the foam. You can also flip it over this way. Go across, just make sure you're getting a full layer on. And then we're going to peel it off. Okay, and there's our first print. And then it looks like next time I'd put maybe even more ink and get more solid print, but you can see how this is showing the design, and then we're going to cut this out and stack it up with the other ones. So that's the print.